It's the week 4 edition of the Coach's Corner on RFM and with our partners, WLPZ 95.1 FM and Tucka56radio.com. Great to have you along with us for another week of the Coach's Corner, previewing action for week 4 and breaking down action that has gone by in week 3 of action. Todd Robbins, as always, joined by Leominster High School head coach Devin Gates as we get set to look ahead to the week 4 matchup as Leominster goes on the road for a week 4 battle against Southern Central Mass opponent Shepherd Hill. More on that action coming up later on. Coach, let's look back quickly at week 3, and we're going to do this a little out of order. Your week 3 game was a 27-0 win over Neshoba. I want to talk a little bit more about that game specifically in a moment, but I actually quite literally want to work our way backwards in time. I want to start with your Sunday because, you know, your weeks aren't busy enough as a team, and you all find opportunities to build team camaraderie when the opportunity comes along. And so you all dedicated your Sunday to the program coming together and pitching in to help a deserving widow of a local veteran. An amazing life lesson for these student athletes. How did you guys get involved, and what was the experience out there like?
Well, we're always looking for ways to help the community and get involved with anything like this that we possibly can. And one of the aunts of one of our players, Amy Mosier, she brought to our attention that this was there was someone in need, and they were trying to organize a day to go out and help clear this person's yard that is overgrown. And it just worked out that was the day that we had it. Kids committed, they came, and they just got to work and got it done. So it was a great day for the program. Kids enjoyed themselves. It seemed like we first got there was a daunting task, but nobody complained. They just grabbed some clippers, grabbed some gloves, and they got after it. So really appreciative of the effort that they put in, and everybody else that helped out too. There were some parents that helped out, some coaches that helped out. So then nautical landscaping was there helping out too. So just a lot of people involved, and made it, many hands make light work. So it took about 4 hours to do what really easily could have been, many weeks worth of work.
When you can dispatch 60 people onto a job, it is amazing how quickly it can go. Obviously in season, I think coaches, and this is in all sports at all levels, try to maintain that focus on, whatever the task is at hand. But I think undervalued a lot of times is that some of the best teams are the ones that are able to keep life in perspective with other things that are going on beyond their world of sports. And I think this is just such a great moment. I mean, the smiles that were evident in the photos, the whole, group hopping into the dumpster together. I mean, there was just some really great moments that are great life memories coupled with a great life lesson.
Yeah, you saw a lot of the kids with true character outside of the sport, and just how they interact with each other, how they interact with people who are appreciative of them helping, to get some of their work done, and then just being able to get the work done in itself. So really learned a lot about a lot of our guys. We didn't make it mandatory. It is in the middle of the season. Guys have things going on. They work during the weekends and stuff like that too. So, we understand all of that and want to be respectful of the downtime that we give the kids too. So, made it completely voluntary. They didn't have to do it. But if we just asked the kids, if you committed to come, then, don't back out. Just gotta be there. And to their credit, everybody showed up, and even more than actually had committed. So it was nice. It was a good day to be a part of the program and to be around all the kids.
And, football leads to lots of memories, but moments away, throughout your high school career are important as well. And I think that's a moment and a memory I hope they all carry with them as they go forward as well, and hopefully inspires them to help out in the community in the years beyond their time playing here in Leominster as well. Let's turn back toward that 27-0 win against Neshoba on Friday night. It was the second straight shutout for your defense. That in and of itself, we talk about obviously through the first few weeks, the massive volume of points that your offense has generated. And, maybe throughout your entire tenure, just how great your defense has certainly been at the forefront. But it is very limited examples that I could even come up with where a defense pitches multiple shutouts in a season, let alone consecutive shutouts in a season. That is almost the proverbial perfect game, and it's done on back-to-back opportunities. Just talk a little bit about the defense and the effort and what specifically you saw out of your defense that really led to another week and another thwarted offensive attempt from your opposition.
Well, I mean, just like we talked about last week with the offensive line playing as a complete unit. Well, the whole defense is playing as a complete unit right now, and I think they all understand. Through Coach Manoni, Coach Martin that does the D line, Coach Navarro, and Coach Meza that do the secondary. They've all got the kids playing as a unit, understanding how they fit into everything and how they're communicating everything. So they really, I think the coaches have done a real good job, and the kids for giving us the time and the patience to put this stuff in. They're now seeing the benefits of how this whole defense fits together as a unit. A lot of times it's the defensive line, the linebackers, how they fit into coverage or gaps, and then the secondary, how they fit in. But this is really, 11 guys being able to make sure that they cover all the areas of the field, and they're understanding it really, really well right now.
Bill Thomas pointed this out on the broadcast, and it relates to your defense and maybe your offense equally. It seems like each week there's maybe a little someone else that we could talk about, or somebody that appears to draw, just happen to be in the right places a lot. And we start talking about them often. Delmar Wright has certainly been one of those players. And this past week, Steve Diaz was certainly one of those players where Steven Diaz seemed like he was wherever the play was going defensively. He seemed to find his way there on multiple occasions, wherever Neshoba was trying to move their offense, whether it was on the ground or whether it was through the air.
We knew that if they were going to try to get to the edge on us with some of those speed sweeps, they're going to try to get Kepler to the outside too. He's a great athlete. And it was a challenge to our corners and our outside linebackers really to come up and be able to play, and our safeties too, for that matter. Jared Viola had a couple good plays too for us, in the alley. But they took it as a challenge to play aggressive, to play physical up there. And Stevens doesn't shy away from contact. He's a good player. The same thing with Jared, and then Delmar's really trying to hold things down in the middle with Gio Roman and the other defensive ends. And I just feel like right now that they're playing very, very confident because they're understanding exactly what the scheme is.
There's a play in my mind that came at the tail end of the game or tail end of the third quarter, somewhere on the back half of the game, that kind of epitomized what I thought was your defense and what their identity has been like this year. And unfortunately, I can't remember who made this play. Maybe if I describe it, you can. It was a pass out to the left of the Neshoba's formation. Guy got the ball in space. It was either a wide receiver screen or a screen out of the backfield. And those situations when you have a lot of space like that, there's a lot of room defensively for breakdowns and lanes. And I just remember somebody squaring up in front of the player and just all by their onesie, wrapping them up and taking him to the ground. Open field tackles can be so daunting and so difficult. And I think that just kind of was the epitome of how well the defense had been playing.
We always talk about next man up, and that was actually the person that came in for Makai Stinson Newton, who was out for a little bit in that game. Keegan Amira Singh.
Yes.
I think I'm saying his last name the right way, and Keegan, I apologize if I didn't, but he stepped in.
We've all been working on it. We've all been working.
He stepped in and did a great job. I mean, he just hit the ground running, and that's a kid who's done a lot of work in the off season, and really dedicated himself to getting better. And for him to have the opportunity, he really, grabbed it by the horns and took advantage of it. He did a great job, had a great game.
And, he had a multitude of mentions in that game as well. The open field hit was one of them. And there was a couple of other plays where he got to where he needed to be in order to be a part of. And then, of course, he had the punt block on special teams, which should not be overshadowed as well. We said, in the Neshoba series, special teams plays in. Typically, we've been talking about field goal kicking and positional football. But in this case, it was blocking a punt that subsequently turns into points.
Yeah, again, that's just strictly an effort play and a kid listening to coaching. He almost blocked it the first time, and Coach Papa, who does the punt block, punt return, just told him to keep his hands a little bit lower. So sure enough, next time out there, he gets his hands a little bit lower and he makes contact with the ball and puts us in a good position to get points on the board. So that's a kid who's just very coachable, does whatever you need him to do, and just goes out there and executes. So great to see that happen. It was a boost for our special teams. I think we've done really well in the return game over the last couple of weeks. And now to see, us putting some pressure and making teams make mistakes, that was good to see.
And he came with, I believe, in a shade of getting a third one, or getting at least a pressure on a third one as well, which would have been a second potential block situation as well. Let's talk a little bit about your offense, because it's certainly been something we've spent a lot of time on through the first couple of weeks. And, I would say there were coachable moments in each of the first couple of weeks, but this might have been the first time where your offense faced true adversity, where they had to figure out, okay, that didn't go the way we wanted it to. 2 interceptions and a fumble on the day. Some of them, the interceptions perhaps you could point to, were caused by pressure. Nashoba was certainly bringing the front often and was forcing plays to kind of move faster maybe than they were designed. And you had alluded a little bit to that on the broadcast last week, that things were going to have to be 2 seconds, 2.5 seconds and gone, because the pressure was going to come. And I think situations like this can be a real blessing perhaps through this third week. It gives you guys something as coaches that you can tangibly look at and go, okay, here are places we've got to improve. There were clearly things that we did wrong in this game.
Yeah, I mean, and credit to Andy LeBlanc and Nashoba's defense. Andy's one of the best defensive coaches around, and they had a really, really good plan against us. We knew he knows how to bring pressure. He knows how to make and change the picture for the quarterback, in terms of what he's looking at, and make teams really feel uncomfortable, and they did at times. What I liked is that we had to work through some of that stuff, and then we found some answers to some of those problems, and we went out there and executed. It was sloppy at times, but to be in that situation where you're facing a ton of pressure right in your face right now, and to have the team be able to settle down a freshman quarterback, to go out there and do what you need to do in the second half to put the game away. I was really proud of how they responded to it, and that's really going to be, some of the toughest pressure that I think that'll present itself this year. So if teams looking for a blueprint, maybe that's it. I don't know, but we found ways to kind of deal with that pressure, because we know it's something that teams are going to do to us.
Certainly, and it was something that I think was expected. At some point, people were going to start to test just how much pressure, can Leominster take. And I'm sure in the weeks ahead, it's something you'll be prepared for and expecting week in and week out as well. A couple of other notes here that I have here. And this is something I think your offense certainly has got to hang its hat on. You have scored first in every single game you have played. Put into context for us, how important an advantage is it to score first in a game and be able to do it week in and week out?
I just, for our team specifically, having, started slow in a number of games in the last couple of years, or given up the first score in the last couple of years, in the first game, it definitely feels a lot better. It changes the whole vibe of what we're doing, gives us the confidence to go out there and know that we can go out and execute and get points on the board. The kids have faith in what we're doing. It makes it, as a play caller, obviously it makes it a little bit easier to kind of, play with that lead and go from there. So it definitely is helping us. It's a point of pride, I think, that we can go out there and execute our initial game plan for that particular week, and then adjust if need be. But the kids are really locked in, and that certainly helps give them the confidence.
Another week where Ricky Encarnacion found his way to where he needed to be, and just seems to have a nose for the ball. He finds his way to where he's got to be, and then figures out when the ball gets into his general zip code how to reel it in. And there was, I thought, a few outstanding catches, 3 that stand out to me that just show concentration and field awareness. Perhaps really putting those into context. It was one going into the boundary, in the second quarter, I believe it was, that you guys were moving right to left. It's a boundary catch. He's got the ball sort of generally into his body. He's able to figure out where the ball is and then secure it as he's on his way out of play. That's certainly one that's of note. You've got the deep one in the first quarter going left to right down the field, going into the boundary, coming across the field. And then there's the touchdown catch, which is in the right corner of the end zone there. And he's sort of backpedaling. It's not, your perfect, straight, go to the flag, with a little bend kind of moment. He's kind of backpedaling on his route. He makes the catch. He again secures the ball and is confident enough to know he's inside of the boundary with at least 1 foot.
Well, I think that's, this is where Ricky's grown the most since last year. His awareness on the football field, offensively and defensively. he's got a lot better of idea of where he's supposed to be, when he's supposed to be there in terms of route timing, and being able to do all that stuff. And then, making catches, that are contested. I think he's done a lot better job of being aggressive and going up and get the ball. It's, something that he's worked on with Coach Navarro as well as the other receivers too. So, those are two areas where he's really improved, and that's obviously been beneficial to us trying to get ourselves out of bad situations and be able to throw the football down the field and have faith that he's going to come up with it. And then just being able to put points on the board with him going up and getting the ball, when he's surrounded by a couple guys. So great game by Ricky. Really proud of him. Came up big when we needed him, and it's off on the work he's put in so far this off season, and and then the beginning of this season as well.
I've always wondered, and of course, I imagine I don't know how many passes you got to flank out for. You were the guy doing the passing in your career, but when the ball is there's a sense, I'm sure, that the ball is in your neighborhood. But when you are juggling, at some point, either your eyes get on it or there's just a touch feel. How do you figure receivers are able to make a play? Like, how do you complete a play in those situations?
It's tough. You just get the feel of when the ball is secure to you, and then you grasp and pull it tight. That's, I liken it to finally getting the Rubik's Cube the way you want to get it and just clutching on. I think that's, the guys, they work on these drills all day long. Receivers, they catch a ton of balls from us, so they're always, it's not always gonna be perfect, but they're really good at making, keeping that concentration, getting the ball in a spot where they can secure it, and then making sure that the catch is made.
No question about that. Indeed, a great heady day for Ricky Encarnacion last Friday night. LHS improves to 3-0 with a 27-0 win over Neshoba last Friday night in Week 3 action, and Neshoba falls to 1-2 with the loss through 3 weeks. Elsewhere in Week 3 action, Shrewsbury downs Acton Boxborough. They're going to get a lot of mentions over the next couple of minutes here, but a 34-6 win. Shrewsbury downs Acton Boxborough. Catholic Memorial upends Algonquin 46-0. Shepherd Hill gets their first win, a 41-19 win over Fitchburg. Coach, it's our weekly mention of quality losses. Credit to Algonquin for scheduling them. They had a point to make. They made it by putting them on the schedule and going out and competing with Catholic Memorial. Yeah. And yes, they will be better off for it, but I still don't know how a 46-0 loss at all helps a football team. But somebody somewhere says that that's going to be better for them than a win over a lesser opponent, I guess. Yeah, and I'm all for scheduling up, but I think it's going to be. And kudos to Algonquin and their staff for taking on the challenge. Again, I'm not, taking anything away from that, or the effort that the kids put out there. But, for me personally, having a game that, that you can see progress in, right? Or if it's close, it's something you can be competitive with. I think that does wonders for your team morale and being able to, successfully build throughout the season. Somebody has to play them, I suppose, at least 8 games a year. So credit Algonquin for taking on the challenge in that one. You alluded to this just a couple of moments ago before we completely put Week 3 away, and that was Makai Newton. We saw him appear in spot duty throughout the game. He was certainly there on the field at the start. Can you give us a little bit of an update? We weren't able to really ascertain. We saw him working on his legs on the sideline, kind of what his situation is and where you see him going forward. Yeah, he's coming back to practice this week, see how he feels, and then we'll kind of make a decision later in the week. But it's not anything serious, so we're fully expecting to be back in the lineup, pretty soon. That is certainly something we will keep an eye on in the week ahead and ahead to Week 4 action. Another busy schedule out there. It's a busy schedule week here on RFM as we've got doubleheader week once again here on RFM. But the games we'll be keeping an eye on Friday night. Fitchburg travels to St. John's, still in search of their first win in the 2022 season. Acton Boxborough's back. They are at Wachusett. Grafton travels to Marlborough. And then on Saturday night, the back end of the RFM week 4 doubleheader, Algonquin visits Shrewsbury on Saturday night, October the 1st. We'll have that action for you here and more on that at the end of the program. Coaches, we turn attention to week 4 and your trip to Shepherd Hill, who enters with a 1-2 record. As I said, they got their first win beating Fitchburg last week, 41-19. So they have a huge offensive performance that they are coming in off and building off of. But they also get another mention of Acton Boxborough. They lost to Acton Boxborough 34-0 in week 1. They lost to a really good Marlborough program, 27-14 in week number 2. And then they were able to pick up the win against Fitchburg by a 41-19 score. So they've had their moments. They are building in a general direction, and you can start to see Coach Buchanan has certainly started to maybe mold this team a bit in his own image, because you see what we know to be the conventional Shepherd Hill tried and true double wing when you look at it on video. But to me, this is a little different than in past versions here. I think we've always talked about it being, it's a shell game. Coach Palazzi used to call it crisscross applesauce. That was his way of phrasing it, because you've got the 2 wing backs and then the fullback, and it's a question of everything's packed in real tight. Where does the handoff go? And that's the traditional double wing. The thing that stood out to me on video was a lot more about him moving the front around a little bit as well, where he's picking up linemen and moving them 4 on one side, 3 on the other in some circumstances. And then there's a handful of more players. It's not just I have a left wing back, a right wing back, and a full back, but there were 3 or 4 or 5 different players that fit those spots. Plus you've got the 2 tights. And so all of a sudden what I saw maybe in my own mind is 3-card Monty has now turned into like 10-card Monty, as there are at least 10 cards on the field that you got to be looking at all times, which just creates, I have to imagine, more havoc for your defense to keep track of.
Yeah, I mean, really 80% of their offense is still that double wing, balanced each side, and just coming at you, whether, down, kick out on power or counter and stuff like that. So that's the stuff that they're really they're still going to be their bread and butter. But they are starting to show a little bit more variety with, some different personnel sets, and definitely the unbalanced stuff that you see with, moving the lineman over to the other side, whether it be right or left. That poses an issue because they break the huddle, they get down fast, they don't give you a lot of time to identify stuff. So you really got to be dialed into, them coming out of the huddle, and, you can make your calls and make sure you're all set. So the unbalanced stuff does pose a little bit of an issue. It's, something we're going to address this week in practice.
I think a little bit about, looking at those unbalanced situations, particularly when you're taking somebody from the left side of the line, moving them right, or vice versa. And I suppose there is a challenge, but there's a common thread, because of course, very common right now in football, there's a lot of pulling that happens from one side or another on a play. So lots of linemen line up on one side of the center or the other, but as the play progresses, their job actually pulls them out and sends them to the opposite side of the line once the snap of the football happens. So I suppose in some ways it's different where there's more people on one side versus another, but in the end, they are starting someplace, and they're likely going to stay there, I suppose, as opposed to pulling in one direction or another.
Well, that's the strategy. That's the chess match in it, right? You can't, how much you're going to adjust to that unbalanced set, and you're going to leave yourself weak, on the backside. So it's, those are things that we got to be conscious about, making sure that we have enough people to, be able to make a play at the point of attack if it's an unbalanced set. While still having enough people backside to, make sure that you're accounting for any misdirection or anything like that as well too.
Yesterday during the Patriots game, an interesting conversation came up that I think pertains really well to your offense and kind of the way you all run. So you guys run a basic shotgun spread formation, call it what you will. And so during yesterday's Patriots game coverage, the color commentator, Darryl Moose Johnson of Fox, was discussing the difficulty for a team that is a gun-based team to run out of that formation. In this case, he was talking about the Patriots. And he said that running out of the gun actually limits your options to maybe 2 or 3 different things, was kind of the summary of what he was talking about. Do you agree with that theory?
I don't agree with that theory whatsoever.
I didn't think so.
No. It's a different formation, but you can still be a wing T guy who runs some of that, brings some of that scheme and some of that mentality to a spread offense too. So it really is, when it comes down to it, a lot of stuff that we do is just triple option off. So however you want to line up in it, however you want to, whatever formation you want to call it, it's still going to allow the same principles. So you can, I don't think it limits your options in terms of your run game. I think you just got to get creative a little bit.
And that's an interesting point that you make, because when Shepherd Hill does show something different. They do spread the field. They did it a few times in the game against Fitchburg. And it is obvious, I think, to me that principally, I mean, the personnel is the same. They're just lining up in different places on the field. So when you say it's a triple option offense against, just set up in a spread formation, to the uninitiated, talk to them, give them a sense. What is happening, generally speaking, on the field? How is it any different regardless of where you line up?
Well, you look at Shepherd Hill with double wing, right? So they'll still have their interior run game and be able to hit the tosses out on the edge and whatnot too. Well, for us, we throw a lot of the side screens, the little short screens, and that's almost like a pitch man or a toss for us. So it's really, it's just guys aligned in different spots. But really, in terms of philosophy of plays, I feel like there's not much difference at all between styles, really.
It's all just about how you get the ball from the center to the quarterback and into the hands of the playmaker.
That's really the big difference. Yeah, I guess.
Fair enough. Okay. All right. Like I said, I thought it was an interesting, point. And I'm like, I know a lot of teams right now. I mean, the in vogue thing at the high school level is gun-based offenses. And there's always the discussion about, I know Billy gets hung up on this a lot, about the amount of timing with the center to quarterback exchange, that snap. And if it's not perfect, how much does it throw off everything else that's happening on your play, right? So when I think about you're saying, well, I mean, in a lot of ways, is it really drastically different than snapping under center? And does it change things? I suppose in the grand scheme of things, no, because your core philosophy can still be your core philosophy. It just looks different.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, to be good at anything, you got to practice it anyway. So like that shotgun, if you're practicing every day and that's what you do, then you got to have faith in it. If you don't practice being under center every day, then it's tough to have faith in that when the game might be on the line sometimes. You want to stay with what you're most comfortable with, especially with high school kids too. But again, thinking of what Moose Johnson said, I guess in the NFL it'd make it a lot more difficult because of all the different types of tags and all the different ways you can run a certain play. But I think at the high school level, it's really, you can run any core offense there and be able to dress it up however you want to dress it up with the different pieces. That's the eye candy, the shell game that you talk about. But at the core root of it, all this run game is power, counter, toss, ISO. And it's really like that's really what you get every week. I don't know if that answered your question there, Tom. Sorry.
I know. I think it did. I think it did. Actually, you won't be surprised. That comment goes on. He lays it at the feet of the quarterback. In this case, it was Mac Jones who he was referring to, but to a former quarterback and a coach who takes pride in quarterback play. He laid it at the feet of the quarterback. Not many tight ends that are on broadcast. He laid it at the feet of the quarterback. It said it's on the quarterback to make things look different. When you run out of a shotgun formation, you've got to be able to make it that RPO or make it look like something else when you can only do two or three other things.
Absolutely. Yeah, absolutely. The window dressing is certainly there, and the quarterback has to be able to know where he's looking, if he's given, if he's not, who he's reading. So, there is, and when to have eyes someplace else to disguise the play too, because a lot of defenses are keen on your eyes anyway there too. So yeah, I guess a lot of it, to be able to dress it up, to have success, a lot of it does have to do with how the QB carries out the fakes and whatnot and everything too.
Got the long trip down to Carmignani Field on Friday night, and we'll get to the adjusted time as well. But it's your first long road trip of the season, and coaches tend to often talk about how road trips tend to help their teams coalesce. Is there a level of excitement with being able to get on the bus? We can all talk about the negatives and we can list those endlessly, but get on the bus, you got the long trip down. Does that change anything that happens between the typical, you're getting on the bus at X time and you're going here at Y time?
Not really. I don't think it's too much of a difference. We say longer. It's not like it's hours longer from,
sure. It's not Texas.
No. So, just keeping the kids focused on what we have to do. That's really what it comes down to. Not really make a big deal about, how long the travel is. It's not something we normally talk about. We just tell them when to be at the bus and then get on and then we're going. But, we made sure that they're well aware that we haven't won down there in a while, and they've embarrassed us down there. So they are excited to go on a road trip. I think this is a good time for us to get on the road and be able to go up against a quality opponent, one who we've struggled against the last few years. And the kids are excited for that challenge.
And I think this is another week where, and maybe instead of asking you for the storyline of the first half, I think the place I'll be keeping an eye on, because I think it's been the place where you guys have struggled maybe in the last couple of meetings, it will be in your defense mashing up against that very physical front, and basically them daring you to stop it. If you could stop what they do, they'll tip their cap to you. If you can't, they're going to just keep marching over you as they work their way to the end zone.
Yeah, it's tough. You have to be ready for the challenge physically and be able to be disciplined. Like I talked about the eye candy, as much goes on with a spread of that, there's a ton that goes on with the double wing. So being able to be disciplined in what your reads are, your keys are, at least defensively for us, that's really going to be what's hammered home all week long at practice. The guys got to be stout with it. They have to know it like the back of their hand, because they can certainly, if they find a weakness and they keep on tapping at it, then something's going to break free, and it's that's usually taken out of hand. So we have to be patient. We have to be stout. We have to know really more than any other week what our responsibilities are.
Week 4 action, it's Leominster and Shepherd Hill, the front end of an RFM audio doubleheader coming up this week. Friday night, game time now 7:30. And that action down at Carmignani Field, beginning of a homecoming weekend for Shepherd Hill. So they have shifted because of a number of games that are lined up in front of the football game on Friday night. That kickoff is now, we're being told, scheduled for 7:30 p.m. Our countdown to kickoff here on RFM will begin at 6:20, as just not entirely certain that the way timing goes in high school, that the officials are going to let that go all the way to 7:30 and kick off on a Friday night when they'd rather kick that game off at the appointed time of 7. So we'll balance that, split the difference on our coverage. 6:20, we'll begin our countdown to kickoff with a listed 7:30 kickoff. Our partners at LeominsterTV, they will start their coverage at 10 minutes to 7 and be on the air with us all the way to the bottom of the hour. But our partners, we've got you covered all the way through the game, on the way to the game, on your way home, and all the ways in between. So as you're on your way down, Facebook Live, YouTube, and Twitch, we've got you for your countdown to kickoff, and then Leominster TV will join us picking up the action at 6:30. You've got it there for the live play-by-play at the game. You can bring it with you on your smart-enabled device, and then replays throughout the weekend. Saturday at noon, 95.1 FM, WLPZ, and WLPZ.org, and then replays on Sunday, also at noon, Tucka56radio.com, TUCKA 56radio.com, and Tucka 56 Radio on Live 365. And then our doubleheader of action continues on into Saturday night as Algonquin travels to Shrewsbury. That game on Saturday night is a 6:30 kickoff. Our countdown to kickoff on Saturday night will begin at 5 o'clock on these same RFM platforms of YouTube, Facebook Live, and Twitch. And a replay of that game will be available on Tucka 56 Radio and Tucka56radio.com Monday at 8 p.m., just before your next edition of Coach's Corner. Coach, before I let you go and give one last promo, Algonquin and Shrewsbury, 2 future opponents for you, 2 teams in Central Mass that have got a good season going on and are going to do what Central Mass usually does, and that's pound on each other and make each other better.
Yeah, no, it's definitely going to be another hard-fought game. Algonquin's played some really tough teams, and so has Shrewsbury the last couple of weeks. So really going to help clear up the picture of who's who, in mid-watch this year. So definitely going to be a tough game on both sides of the ball.
Action to keep an eye on as well. Of course, no week here begins without your Coach's Corner. Monday night, 9 p.m., these same RFM platforms, YouTube, Facebook Live, and Twitch. We've got your breakdown and analysis, and it continues on Wednesday at 8 p.m. on Tucka 56 Radio and Thursdays at 5 p.m. on WLPZ 95.1 FM and WLPZ.org. Coach, as always, thank you so much. We'll see you down on the field on Friday night. For Leominster High School head coach Devin Gates, I am Todd Robbins. Until this week, later on Friday, and of course next week right here on the Coach's Corner, you come right back for your preview and analysis. Next week we say so long, everybody.